Welcome to the Bible Forum. It's Sunday night, June 16, 2019. The Vatican has come out with a position on homosexualism. The Vatican department charged with overseeing, and they say Catholic, but it's really Roman Catholic. The Vatican does not oversee the other 2 or 3 Catholic churches in the world, but they tend to say Catholic because they see themselves as being the only group there is. Those other people, they just sort of fit in with us, right? Anyway, the department overseeing Catholic, Roman Catholic education released an extensive document last Monday decrying what it calls a crisis on whether gender can be an individual choice rather than being set by God or biology. The document describes a culture-wide disorientation that serves to, as they say, cancel out the natural difference between man and woman, as well as destabilizing the family as an institution. The Congregation for Catholic Education says the goal of the 31-page guide is, quote, to support those who work in the education of young people so as to help them address in a methodical way and in light of the universal vocation to love the human person, the most debated questions about human sexuality. The document is entitled Male and Female, He Created Them. And it does not deviate from traditional Catholic teaching. Now, the timing of its release, coming during the heart of Pride Month, has led some to wonder whether Vatican bureaucracy was making a point. The text is dated February 2nd, 2019, but it's only being made public now, 4 months later, around the time gay rights supporters around the world are gathering at rallies and parades and concerts to honor the LGBTQ community. Sounds a little political. The events are timed to coincide with the anniversary of the Stonewall riots of 1969, widely considered to have launched the modern Pride movement. The document is co-signed by Cardinal Giuseppe Versaldi, head of the Education Department, and Archbishop Angelo Vincenzo Zani, who is secretary. What is notably absent is the signature of Pope Francis. He, the liberal, social liberal, did not sign it. In the past, the Pope has expressed sympathy for LGBTQ people, saying, quote, if someone is gay and he searches for the Lord and has goodwill, who am I to judge? The fact that homosexuality and all that goes with it is not at all identified with the Lord just seems to escape everybody. In fact, the Lord is over here, and all of that stuff is as far away from him and down in the gutter and away as it can possibly be. But here's the Pope, not willing to make any waves, all God's people. No, all people are not God's people. The human race has been created by God, but they are not all God's people. A very few are God's people. To be a God's people, you have to believe what that God believes and then live it. I know, not perfectly. Throw rocks because nobody's perfect. But it takes a life change. It takes a heart change to be able to do it. All that somehow gets lost in the rhetoric. Later, the Pope said the Church should apologize to gays and to other marginalized groups. For what? for reading a Bible that says you guys are wrong and what you're doing is on the list of the most immoral things a human being can do? I didn't write it. But the support is not extended to transgender individuals whose gender identity does not match the gender they were identified with at birth. In the 2015 book, The Economy Kills, Pope Francis is wading in on capitalism and social justice, and he is quoted comparing gender theory, which allows one identity to exist along a spectrum, to nuclear arms annihilation. The Vatican document takes aim at what it calls gender theory. I never thought of gender as a theory. It rightly calls for dialogue and listening, but according to those supporting transgenderism, it sets aside the real-life experiences of LGBT people. Yeah, we can't talk about it. It is too gross. The author of this piece is James Martin. He's a priest within the Roman Catholic Church. He continued saying, sadly, it will be used as a cudgel against transgender people and an excuse to argue that they shouldn't exist. He tweeted on Monday that while the Vatican document rightly calls for listening and dialogue, it, quote, sets aside the real-life experiences of LGBT people, end of quote. Yeah, sets them aside. We can't talk about it. There are children in the room. It is so disgusting. It isn't something in polite society that ought to be discussed. He goes on to say, sadly, it will be used as a cudgel against transgender people, an excuse to argue that they shouldn't even exist. Now note, the document specifies homosexual tendencies, which are disordered, not the men or the women. They are not disordered. The homosexual tendencies are. This is a highly politicized piece, argument, paper. We're trying to keep as many people in the Catholic Church as possible. Don't want to upset anybody. But somehow these men are sacrificing their soul.